Please stand. Give with the prayer. Bless these councillors of the Hutt and give all things needed for their faithful discharge of their responsibilities.
Whakapapainga mai mātou, ko nā mai mai whakatiki. Ho mai ki mātou nā mai re mai. Kia arataki ai tora mātou mahi, nā mahi hei hopare uki tia ia tere hapari.
Give to each good faith, good health and good judgment for the decisions to be made, wisdom beyond our own, and a clear understanding so that we may promote thy glory and the welfare of all in this city.
Ko mai ke tine nā mō tore. Kia oronga pai me te whākara pai hoki. Kia whakatau ai ki tanga, nā mata tuta tia kore ti me te tara tanga. Kia tu korea me tia oraranga o tia korea woto ia whakateki.
Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Ko ehu kraitia mātua grati. Amen.
Thank you. Before we move into the business of our meeting on the 11th, our full council 11th, and just some of the highlights of the last cycle. On the 11th of November, we had a Remembrance Day service out here. We also then, following that, then had the dedication ceremony for the sign park down at the Soldiers' Pool down on the River Trail by Trent Memorial Park. We had the opening on the 25th of November of the Yakashimi exhibition at Whirinaki, which is co-sponsored by the Japanese Embassy. We had also, obviously on the 1st of December, the Christmas parade, which was the only one in the region. I think the next nearest one was Palmerston. That was a good crowd. Did they have one? And then we also had the teen parent prize giving, and then just the last week attended the Te Awakairangi Hutt Valley Police Awards ceremony, and also the new commissioner was here, Commissioner Richard Chalmers, who was originally, his very first appointment was as the district commander at Lower Hutt back in 2004. And then just last week we had the hosting of the morning tea for the schools, for the students who contributed to the community calendar. So we now have apologies. We have apologies from Councillors Newell and Hammond, and lateness for Councillor Holdings. Happy to move. And seconder and Councillor Griffiths. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no. That's been carried. Declarations of interest. If there's any changes, please see myself or
Your Worship, I wish to declare interest for agenda item number 7. I believe the chamber for that's been discussed. I also call for item 7 to be bringing up forward on the agenda. So
yep, we can do that.
One of our public speakers then can leave after that item has been finished.
We'll do that when we get there. Yep. Thank you. Happy to take that. And also just highlight before we move to the public forum, welcome our manager Tim Hardy. It's his very first councillor meeting. Welcome. Thank you. I hope you come back for more. Okay, we now move to the public part, and we have speakers. The first of them is Mr. From the Hutt Valley Motorsport Club. Come forward. You can bring another chair up there. That's right. Yep. And we've got Rob and Andrew. Welcome.
Thank you. So we'll a second to see how this is done. But let's give it a go. So Hutt Valley Motorsport Club has been running for just about 75 years. We're looking to do a temporary road closure on February to the Wallaceville Hill for our annual event of Hutt Valley Wallaceville Hillclimb. This event itself has been running for about 76 years, and that's why we're here today to talk about it. So Hutt Valley Motorsport Club has been about 4 years ago originally investigated, and then have been leading the way in using electric cars and also the sustainability of carbon emission offsets through the Motorsport New Zealand program. Both of those have been very successful in the use of has been the regs and regulations and safety plans that we have written have been used around New Zealand. And we are a leading club within the area and within the North Island for using electrics. We have fully supported and had a number of electrics enter our events throughout these times. We run a number of events throughout the year, about 6 in total, and fully support both of them, both the carbon emission offsets and also the use of electric vehicles. What we're looking for today, as it says, just support for the temporary road closure of this event and to continue on with it.
Thank you. Any questions now for Rob or Andrew? Did you hear Swell?
Thank you for coming along, and I'm very aware. And so we're responsible. We've got a sustainability strategy that talks about carbon emissions and things like that. So whilst you're offsetting them, and it's you to be, congratulated that you use electric cars, do you have that information that you pass on to us so that when we approve, if we approve this to go ahead, that we have actually got those carbon emissions and offsets? Or is it just something?
No, we can arrange that through Motorsport New Zealand. So we use their sustainability emissions scheme that they set up.
Yeah. So
we can arrange for that to be, proof that we have provided to it, and then also what that emissions offset is capable.
I think that would be very valuable because it would be better into our sustainability strategy that we've got as a council. Thank you.
Any further questions?
Could you give me an example of what kind of offsetting that the Motorsport Club uses?
Offsetting as in, so we use, as I said, the Motorsport New Zealand as a sustainability offset program. So Motorsport has drafted this up for all cars around New Zealand to use, and it is, you can subscribe into it, and we subscribe into that offset program, and that's a commercially run, like a governance run program. I can't give you exacts of what is offset on.
Okay.
But I can, as said, I'm happy to find that information and provide it through to you.
Thank you.
Any further questions? No? Thank you. Thanks very much. Thank you. We'll bring that item forward too. We'll do 6 and 7. We'll bring both. Okay. Okay. Now we have the second speaker is Heather Bishop. Heather, welcome.
Kia ora. It's the last one. I just wanted to say I'm here primarily about Maidstone, the Maidstone area at the back of Maidstone. I thought it was zoned for high density residential. It did have housing there, so there will be infrastructure there. I've since found out that it actually has been kept or held in as a recreational space. Submissions were done when you took the expressions of interest for a tiny house community. We've been told over and over and over again that we have to build more houses and we have to provide more accommodation. So I'm really surprised that we're taking prime land that had been residential and we can't consider turning it into, say, I don't know, an eco village or a tiny house village. Lindale and Harcourt, similar models. They're close to town, they're close to services. They're actually close to the Marae and the social services. I actually did contact them and I wondered whether they might have a vested interest in creating something like that. Lindale charges $150 a week. The transitional homes so that the land can quickly revert back to its original state. If the bowling club were to sell their land, they're not going to do that and take that risk unless there's a really good long-term contract for that space at the back. So I don't know if it's gone through okay because I tend to have technical glitches, but it did, oh thank you. So I did submit through just a couple of proposals. One was a fenced off nature space because there are some people in our community that the risk of taking them to natural environments is really high. So fencing an area where they can be safe, where caregivers can, I'm not going to go into that in too much detail because that's all in the plan. And so that's one area that I suggested. And I also suggested that there was affordable accommodation. And I just gave some figures. I know these were simplistic figures, but the figures were just to show that if someone were to take it on like Upper Hutt Housing Trust or Orongamai, you could actually create something that's affordable and support it. And I did a model there. The other thing was we've The word in principle has been used so many times at council of late. I just couldn't resist. And unfortunately, my technology went wrong. It looked really great. Might look better on your computer. I was just trying to get the point across that actually the word in principle is starting to sound like you're right. And one final thing, we trialled because after the long-term plan, the eco site at Catherine Mansfield and the Māori ward, we decided to create a safe space at the marae called Weaving the Harakeke, where community and council came together. It was a pilot, which has been so successful that the marae now actually want to share the story and how it was really appropriate that a group that was an advocacy group was using their space. So they're going to start us off in the new year, the week after Waitangi. And so what we'd like to do is extend it out to all council. It was started off with 2 councillors that contacted me when I emailed everyone. So that's how I based it. We've had a few guests. And the feedback has been really amazing because we can sit in that space and we can share and discuss information from both sides and so that it's more understandable. So thank you for those that, and also there's just one addition because we used to be able to walk in and say we wanted to talk or not. Now we have to know the day before, and sometimes life has unexpected road bumps. As you all know, Toitu to Te Tiriti, how can we actually be more of a partnership? Why do we need to be told to be a partnership? There are things that we can do, and it was just whispered in my ear that we're setting the agenda for next year. Why don't we consider things like the Marutaka and start implementing some of these things? So by doing the weave at the marae, it was shifting the power. It was actually saying, look, we acknowledge that there is a partnership, you know, so it was, there was motive for doing that. And I'd like to see the council maybe take a few more things over there, or I can't anyway. Yeah, that's me.
Okay, any questions?
Thank you.
Councillor Begley?
Thank you, Worship. Heather, you state that you'd like to see more housing built. Are you aware that the bowling proposal is to sell their land off for housing? And it's
yes, no, so it wasn't more houses built. It was an eco villages. So if you go to Lindale, they're transportable homes.
Right.
So there are cabins and there is a shared space. So there's a shared kitchen, washroom. So the idea was, the guy had COVID, so I didn't get to ask a lot of questions, but someone said there was about 30 people living there. So I was basing it on that. And so they could, but I went round the other day and it's actually respectfully kept. If you think about it, Australian Americans have caravan parks and they're not. And if you look at Otaki, they're actually starting to sell off their long-term lease of tent sites down at Otaki. So there's campgrounds in there, and I realise I'm using the campground model because it's a village-like. So it's about keeping it simple, possibly off-grid, semi-off-grid, so there's no pressure on the infrastructure. It's right near the marae, for example. If they managed it, I don't know if they want to, I don't know, but there's possibilities there.
Okay, any questions? No, thank you, thanks, Heather. And our next is on item 7. Another Hutt Bowls President, welcome. Thank you. Good afternoon, Your Worship, councillors and others. As I stated, my name is Tony Hewitt. I'm the president of the bowling club. The bowling club welcomes the opportunity to relocate to the land adjacent to Maidstone Park. Club building in Exchange Street was deemed 30% of the MDS to the impact program. And the cost to strengthen that building will be unaffordable to the club. The club, while cash poor, sits on the land that is now very valuable for intensified housing. After consideration of various options, the club decided that a relocation to the land adjacent to Maidstone Park is possibly our best option going forward, given the fact that the bowling club's been around for over 100 years in Upper Hutt. The club's relocation will add another sport to complement those existing at Maidstone Park already, and we see it as an opportunity to grow interest in the sport of outdoor bowls, both competitively
And more importantly, from the social and community aspect, as this is where the future of our bowls will be. Relocation gives Upper Hutt the opportunity to have an all-weather facility, which will be hugely beneficial not only to the Upper Hutt community, but to the wider community in the Wellington region. The bowls facility will enable Upper Hutt to host major outdoor bowls events without worrying about inclement weather, and thus attract visitors to Upper Hutt. The facility should be seen not as a separate sports facility, but as complementary to Hardgrave Park. I'd like to clarify a couple of points made in the paper. Paragraphs 10 and 11 in the paper gives information about timelines for the relocation project that we provided in the initial EOI. This timeline was indicative only and presumed that approval was given by the club before the club was advised that the proposal had to go out for community consultation. It was always predicated on the date when the Exchange Street property would be able to be sold. And in paragraph 48 in the paper, it states that the rough order of costs were considered by council officers to be overly ambitious based on examples of recent bowling construction. The club is of the opinion that it's not fair to compare the construction of the proposed covered facility with other examples, because these are based on expensive construction methods, an online facility being one, and the proposed Hamilton Bowling Club facility, which is a warehouse type construction. The clubs used the polycarbonate structure considered when it applied for a resource consent at Exchange Street a few years ago, and updated it to this year's prices. The club will also be considering a number of alternatives that could be cheaper. And there was a paper I believe tabled earlier today, this one here, which obviously has considerably cheaper pricing for the proposed building. I'm happy to take any questions that anyone has. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in front of you.
Any questions for Tony? Councillor Jenkins?
Thanks, Tony. I know it says in the paper it's yet to be agreed upon, but is the club prepared to pay a commercial lease for the land?
That wasn't anticipated as a cost that we would be up for. We assumed that at some point there'd be a lease of some sort, but we weren't expecting it to be a commercial lease, given that it's a community-based sporting activity, I guess.
Yeah, thank you. And one more question for Nate. What happens if you don't get that full amount for the land?
Full amount that's included in there.
For Exchange Street, yeah.
That's a good question. We would definitely be looking for that money, because we believe that's basically what that land's worth. We sold off a whole portion of it previously. And obviously the land value's gone up, and the intensification opportunities now make that land way more valuable. If we didn't get that, we would definitely have to look at perhaps scaling down what we can do over here to start with.
Thank you.
Councillor Griffiths?
Coming, Tony. I haven't had a chance to read this paper, and I assume somewhere in here it'll say about the longevity of the skin that you're proposing as a cheaper option. Do you know the lifespan of the carpet skins? And
the current carpet we have at the moment's probably been down for at least 10 years.
Not the carpet, sorry, the skin, the roof.
Oh, the skin? I'm pretty sure they're 10 to 15 years minimum.
And would you ever plan to have that plan in the future to have it replaced
at some point
on a regular basis?
Oh, I just don't think, yeah, we wouldn't be able to do it without, so we wouldn't be allowed it without budgeting it all the way through. Given that there'd be a roof over it, we definitely need to keep that there to preserve whatever we put underneath it, basically.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming along. Just a question, what would happen after public consultation that we decided that we weren't going to offer it to you? Where does that put the bowling club?
back on it, I guess a roughly 10-year schedule to find somewhere else to go to. And then find other alternatives. The building is quite grown, the top part apparently, old, so we would have to seriously look at other options. We will be talking to Silver Stream Bowling Club in the first instance if this goes ahead, because we only see the future for one bowling club, based on numbers and the way that bowls is moving to a more social, casual basis than it is for full-time membership, if you like. We would be keen to have them involved right from the word go.
I have a second question. So would you not then consider maybe amalgamating and using Silver Stream Bowling Club grounds?
Yeah, possibly, but we don't, we see that they'd run into the same problems as we have now. We're trying to get to a point where we can play pretty much 12 months of the year in a covered facility. I don't see them having the opportunity to do that down there either, so we're back to square one. The surfaces that can be used.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? No, thank you, Tony. Thank you
very much.
And our final speaker is May Lee. May, welcome. May's talking on item 8, Fergusson Drive, proposed no stopping line.
Right, Bruna, Dato Kato. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today, for me to speak today. I live in 1089 Fergusson Drive since 2016, and I want to bring to your attention the pressing issue that affect the safety and convenience for my household and the surrounding community. There are 3 key issues. First, permanent staff parking on Burns. Since the opening of the Super Liquor store and Foursquare, there have been a significant increase of staff parking their car permanently along the Burns outside 1089, that's my property drive. This occur every Monday to Sunday from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. depending on their shifts, the workers, the staff. The second one is the impact of safety and accessibility. My driveway access is frequently obstructed due to the high traffic volume on Fergusson Drive. My household often needs to back into the driveway to ensure that we can drive safely out later. This is becoming increasingly difficult because staff cars are constantly parked on both sides of the burn. Visibility is severely compromised when exiting the driveway, making it dangerous to pull onto the road. This problem is worsened by the pedestrian crossing located less than 5 meters from our property. The bus stop is immediately also adjacent to the pedestrian crossing. So the third problem also is community parking practices. My neighbor 1087 Fergusson Drive, who lack off-street parking, occasionally park their car on the Burns. This is not a concern for me, as their parking is temporarily and intermittent. My primary issue here is staff vehicles from the shops parking long-term permanently outside my home despite amber parking available further down Fergusson Drive, such as Hardgrave or 1093 Fergusson Drive. So to address this concern, I suggest the following yellow line installing along the Burns near my driveway would prevent long-term parking and improve visibility and accessibility. The second one would be restrict parking hours, limiting parking duration near my property could help balance the needs of the resident and the community, the businesses, I mean. So to make it clear, I initially proposed yellow line and restricted hours to resolve this issue. The idea of permanent, the idea of pedestrian refuge island or additional non-stopping lines was suggested by Mr. Kumar, the engineer, during our discussion in June. So to conclude this matter, it is not opposing, I'm not opposing public parking. It is about addressing the persistent long-term occupation of these spaces by staff vehicle, which create hazards and inconvenience for residents. I strongly urge the council to take a step to mitigate this issue for the safety and well-being of everyone from drive along my area, my location. Thank you.
Just so, are you in favour of what's being proposed?
Yes, I suppose, but like I say, my first suggestion was just a yellow line or, or no non-stopping line as opposed to the island that was built,
And these cars you're talking about, are they on the berm or on the road?
On the berm.
On the grass berm.
On the driveway that I have to go left and right depending on where I'm going.
Well, that's an enforcement issue, isn't it? Yeah, that could be, we could have, that's an enforcement issue. Any other questions? No, thank you.
Thank you for your
Thanks
time.
for coming. Thank you. Well, so what we'll do is because we have people, item 6 and 7, so we'll move, as long as the council agrees, we'll move to, first we'll do item 6, which is the road closure application on the Wallaceville Hill. And we have there 3 recommendations. Is there any discussion? Moved. I'm happy to second it. Any further discussion? No. We have a mover and a second. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
No, it's been carried. Yeah, thank you. And we now move to item 7, which is proposed use of the land adjacent to Maidstone Park for the upper Hutt bowling club. 292. Councillor Carson has left the room. And we have the recommendations there, noting that a further report will be presented to council to the submission received on the proposed to determine whether the council should proceed. I'm happy to move that. Seconded by Councillor Ultra. Any discussion?
Yeah.
Councillor Bentley.
Just around the details of the lease, because I think if we do go out to public to consult, that would change a few people's minds if they know it's a peppercorn lease or if it's a community lease. So is there any idea, officers, what we should be expecting? Obviously, I know there's the other party in the room today, so we can't say everything, but what can we have a bit more detail on where we expect the lease to go?
Through you, Your Worship, it's I guess cart before the horse. Is at the moment we're looking to consult the public on the idea of the bowling club going onto that property. Then there is a discussion around the lease and the terms of the lease agreement, etc., etc. If councillors would like more detail to go out into the public consultation, we can certainly work with the bowling club around getting that detail to include in the public consultation document to the satisfaction of both council officers and the bowling club.
Yeah, I just think we're potentially giving up public space. So if the public know that their rates will go down by X amount because they're giving up that public space, it might make them supportive of the proposal rather than, well, actually the space is gone and they're not getting anything back for it. I think it makes a whole lot of difference.
I'm not sure, councillor, that whatever rentals paid over there will decrease anyone's rates.
Well, that's what people would like to know, I think. That's a fair question.
Any further? Good. Deputy Mayor Swales.
Thank you. To follow on what Councillor Bentley has said, I think we did have a number of responses from the community when we did put in the initial RFP out, and it came back, and then we kind of looked at what were the best options, and this was our second preferred option because our first one said that they wouldn't go with it. And I suppose the reason why my councillor is asking for a little bit more information to go out to the community is that we were more or less under the impression that the first option might have paid a more commercial rate. I think too, when you look at what happens next door, you know, when we look at the sporting codes that are using that wonderful facility that we've got there and what they pay for that, it would be nice to know that the community would, that something similar would be offered to the bowling club should we end up by offering it to them. And I think it would be important for the community to know that. So I do support what my colleagues.
Any further comments? We have a mover and second, councillor Wheeler.
Thank you, Your Worship. As councillor Swales mentioned, the bowls was second on the list, and that's the next one coming up. And I think the bowls to me is a better place recreationally in a recreational area as opposed to, you know, the issues in a residential area where I think they've had problems in the past with light issues, noise issues, and that. So I support them coming over to Blissett Park as opposed to being where they are in the residential area.
In that expressions of interest, two councillors remember that there was only, I understand, there was only one commercial venture put in of the numbers that went. So we need, and it's part of that discussion, you need to also look at the other sporting groups that are on there and what they, tennis clubs, football, all of them there. So we do have a mover and we have a seconder. Put that to the vote. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. It's been carried. Okay, thank you. Oh, we'll get councillor Carpenter's opinion.
One.
Now move to item 4. Item 4, which is the local water done well, the future direction of deliveries. And we have a series of recommendations for us. The item G is the key for us. And direct council officers continue to investigate single council owned or direct officers not to further investigate. And I point out that on page 17, clearly there, look at some of the outcomes of affordability, etc. Of it's clear that more work on that. I mean, it's clear now that it's unsustainable. But any discussion? Councillor Carson?
Thank you. First of all, just before I ask the question, it seems to me that, I mean, obviously it says there are two choices. One is the council controlled organisation, a new CCO, which comprises now 5 councils, presumably. Now that Kapiti and South Wairarapa and the Wairarapa have pulled out. And the status quo, which is Wellington Water. Now, Paris 45 and 46 talk about this Wellington Water as the other option, but in the recommendations it talks about an enhanced status quo, which I presume is an enhanced Wellington Water. So I'd like to ask officers, what is the difference between Wellington Water at the moment and an enhanced Wellington Water, that is the enhanced status quo? In my mind, Wellington, the CCO, the difference now that there's only 5 councillors, the CCO, Wellington Water becoming a CCO, for example, the only difference is that the new organisation would own its own assets, and therefore be able to borrow, which Wellington Water can't. Secondly, that the new CCO can borrow up to 500% of revenue after it's assumed the loans from the other councils. And thirdly, it's divorced from political interference as well. So those are the 3 main attributes I see perhaps of an enhanced Wellington Water. So basically, in my mind, we're looking at the same thing. Except that, of course, that Wellington Water would be dissolved and a new organisation created. But basically, to my mind, there's only 3 major differences. So I presume that's the enhanced status quo. I'm asking that of the officer.
Answer that. Okay.
Through you, Worship, the councillor is correct. I mean, the only other thing I'd add to that is the enhanced organisation would have its own constitution. With new regulatory environment that exists, but apart from that, everything you've said is correct.
Any comments? Deputy Mayor Swales?
There was a comment on page 8 under 16, and then it goes over to para 20 on page 9. A mixed council consumer trust owned organisation. I've never heard that around our table. What is a consumer trust owned organisation? Could I please have an explanation?
It's part of it.
Yeah, through you. It's like the old power companies. Yeah. Like it's that sort of model. We haven't explored it, but that's the idea, that it would be like the old Hutt Valley Electricity as an example. Sorry to take lead. Lines companies, all those. It's those ideas that they sit as a own entity. But, yeah, haven't explored it.
And so why did we decide we wouldn't go down and even have a look or put any papers to us as elected people as to why it's not an option?
Through your worship, we didn't do it as a region. We didn't do it as a single organisation, and we didn't do it as a region. The main reason given for it was the affordability of that approach and how that could work at a sustainable level. And how LGFA at the time were talking about. I mean, LGFA might have moved on from that, I do not know, but at the time it wasn't a preferred option.
Sorry, add to that answer, it was considered by a your oversight group, and it was mentioned early on in workshops that councillors are invited to attend. But the corporate structure was less suitable than a company due for borrowing reasons.
Any further, Councillor Ultra?
I have through you, Chair, I have a question on page 14.61, partly 62. So the council controlled organisation would also install water meters and control the billing of customers. So how much input will council have into managing that billing system in terms of fairness of billing rates, and like, so if the new CCO is billing the customers for volumetric charging on water, how much influence will councils have for that to make sure they're getting a fair rate?
Through you worship, this council would be a shareholder, and that would be the means by which they'd get their influence. The ability to influence the operations of billing and such like, and the installation of water meters would not be a direct influence other than by shareholder mechanism.
But the
through the chair, there's also an economic regulator going to be put in place to monitor the wage fees and charges will be set for water. But and it's interesting that before there was brief reference to the electricity industry, you can bet, in fact, I would give you odds 100 to 1 that the way pricing for water through volumetric charging will be set up will be exactly the same way. There will be a usage charge, and that will probably be your primary tool for some sort of equity, and there will be a fixed charge associated with that as well, just as you get on your electricity bill. The fixed charge will cover that those two charges will be used in varying combinations to try and get some sort of charging equity for individual consumers. But it's a very crude and very coarse way of doing it.
Councillor Kerry?
We should have heard that too, questions.
Yeah.
We can finish that without.
I was just going to add, the third bill also sets out, I mean, the third bill's just been issued in the last 24 hours and it's a bit of reading. It also sets out the need to have a water services strategy. and that would need to cover those type of activities. I mean, it specifically says provide transparency about and support integrated decision-making in relation to the water service providers, proposed charges, proposed service levels, financial forecasting information, long-term infrastructure investment plans. So those type of documents and work plans need to be developed.
Councillor Kerry.
Sort of two parts, but through us as the guarantors for things to anticipate either arrangement. Are we impacted? So obviously there's the borrowing that the entity can do for its capital investment, everything up to 5% of its revenue. That their credit rating would be affected by revenue and their debt ceiling and how their operation is. Does that also affect our interest rates as the guarantors, you know, or the council's credit rating as a guarantor as well, indirectly? So do we have risk to? Sorry, this is the first part.
Okay, through you, Your Worship. The answer is that it'll be an uncalled capital shares arrangement, and so the crude answer is no. The absolute answer is unknown because it's still to be explored. There is a difference in the model. For the purpose of this at the moment, you are better off in a multi-owned entity than you are in a single-owned entity because the guarantee has a slightly different dynamic. So I think the second part of your question is, would this council be impacted if we're in a multi-council owned one? The answer is highly unlikely. If you're in your own one, it will not be judged by the local government funding agency so much, but it will be by your credit agency. They will assess it in a different way. So yeah.
Okay, any other questions, Councillor Bentley?
I don't have a question. I just want to have some discussion.
Yep.
So, Your Worship, I'm going to go to page 1354 and 55. So when we've been out and consulted in our LTP, right, and we put a substantial amount of money in there under water. But it says here, the exercise demonstrated that based on current planned rate increases, the council is unlikely to meet the legislative financial sustainability requirements of revenue, investment and financing sufficiency. Further work must be required to understand how financial sustainability could be achieved. So we knew that before the third bill came out, right, that it was all about making sure that our investment in the capital investment was sustainable for the government and their measure. So it hasn't really been clear what their measure is when they talk about sustainability and where they want. I mean, we've got the regulation of what quality of water we need, right? But if they're saying that the investment that we've put in over the next 10 years, or what this is saying, is not enough, we know that our community can't afford any more rates increase hikes. So in the third bill, when it talks about the affordability from a consumer perspective, what have they said in there that might temper and make a more balanced place where we sit when we go out and consult to our community? Because at the moment they're thinking, oh my God, I've got my rates bill, and possibly through what's being reported in the newspapers, an extra $4,000 on their rates per annum.
So the question is, what have they said in the third
bill to actually help give us any assurances to our residents that actually it will be affordable for them, that there is some sort of balance between what the government say that we need to invest and what the community can afford.
If I had the third bill for less than 24 hours, I'll give you an answer in that time frame. The focus appears to be on consumer protection rather than on consumer affordability. That would be my honest answer, because the mechanisms that have been put in focus on making sure there's qualitative and quantitative measures for consumers to make sure that they are delivered what they were promised to be delivered, rather than focusing
Can
on.
they afford it? Okay, thank you.
That would be a very initial response.
Councillor Carson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Affordability. No one knows what affordability is. Affordability can be different from a person who can't afford it to a person who can afford it, and the person who can afford it may not be able to afford it. So I don't buy this affordability argument at the moment until government legislates what definition of affordability. And basically, affordability is the ability of the user to pay. And that's the Oxford Dictionary definition. And therefore, it would depend on about, there's no such thing as the community can afford to pay, because we're talking about the community as a whole. And there's no such thing as an average person, because there's no such thing as an average person. There's only a median. And so affordability, unless it can be defined in legislation, I don't think has any operation in this matter, because it's based on what a person can afford to pay. And that will be different for every ratepayer in Hutt and every ratepayer throughout New Zealand. The thing that people will need to understand is that water is no longer a free good. Water is a commodity, just like electricity and gas. And the whole legislation and the philosophy of the coalition government is treating water as a commodity. It's no longer free, and therefore you have to pay for it regardless. And so it is the same thing as they have to pay for electricity and gas. God help us.
Thank you. Okay. Councillor Reed.
Thank you, Worship. Support the recommendations as they are. There have been some chats about what options we realistically do have. People saying there's actually only one option, so why are we even consulting is one realistic option. There are multiple options. One is a lot more realistic than the others, which is the regional model. We do have the option to go it alone. It is always an option, but it means we're paying more because we have to go and build our own water treatment plant, our own wastewater treatment plant, so drinking pumps, wastewater treatment plant. We have to build that on our own. It is an option, but you'd be paying a hell of a lot more for water. What we do have, so we have multiple options, but we have one realistic viable option, which is the regional model. Another point that has come up is that we've gone through this exercise to end up with Wellington Water 2.0. And it is true to a fact, but we had to go through the exercise to work out who was an attempt, how big it was going to be, and then work from there. We've ended up with Wellington Water 2.0. Let's hope it's better than the last one. And I think it is with the legislation in front of us. We're going to have better protections actually for the consumer. The Commerce Commission will regulate these entities, which will be effective monopolies. The Commerce Commission can't regulate council rate increases, but they can regulate the increases of these entities. So there'll be better consumer protection. There'll be better ring-fence guaranteed investment in water, and there will be less political interference into what should be a utility or a commodity, as Councillor Carson put it. So I support the recommendations of the Liberals.
Councillor Ultra.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I just wanted to ask about, so page 25, points 24 and 25, is comments there about taumata arawai and the change in approach for te mana o te wai. And I am trying to figure out, does that mean protection for the river is reduced in some way? And in addition to that, has environmental water quality been balanced with a growing population and water demand? So the effect on the river is something that is concerning to the community as well. And I just wonder if there's a reduction in protection for the river with the changes in approach.
The logic behind these changes is about allowing Mata Arawai as the water regulator the ability to be efficient and do their job of imposing fines, for example. It enables them to be the regulator that they're there to be. So that's a large part of what is driving those changes.
Okay, now we have, Councillor Wheeler.
I just wanted a clarification on G, the recommendation. And it's really, we voted against and we went G2. We only have two recommendations, or not two recommendations, but two options. And we vote for G1 and we will have three. The question is, how much time and effort would there need to investigate that option? Or because all we've got at the moment is saying it's not viable, but there's more application.
Through your worship, para 22, we're on, the timeline is really set out for us, it's not for us to, I suppose what we're trying to say with this paper is at a high level, going alone is more, anything's doable, but it's way more expensive at a high level. And if you want further work, we can go away and do that. And that's, yeah, and that's, I mean, that's not for me to dictate, that's your decision, obviously. And I'm just reiterate the point that at a high level, it looks like it's far more expensive to go alone. And I think paras 28 and 29 are actually the key. And Councillor, your colleague mentioned that earlier on, that this council does not have its own wastewater treatment plant. It does not have bulk water. It was raised in the long-term plan consultation document that that would continue. You would be at the mercy of the new water entity still. So there are some fairly big financial components there. But that said, happy to go away and do more work.
You have a look at page 17, disadvantages of the year quite clear. Okay, so we have removed the recommendations. We do need to, are you suggesting G1 or 2 in your recommendation? Councillor Altrick?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask about keeping control of stormwater. Is that something that council officers have taken a closer look at in terms of whether we are able to? I just think of stormwater as also being drinking water, certainly also river water. It's not just water in the drains to get rid of. It's a lot more valuable than that. I just wonder if it's had a closer look.
Through your worship, we have had a closer look at it, but what the paper is saying and is brought out in the third bill is stormwater is still is a hard water to regulate on, I can put it that way, and the government is still working out how that might work and where the boundaries of what stormwater is and stormwater isn't. So when it's the pipes under the road and when it's the flow of water over a park. So they're still working those boundaries out, and there is some guidance that's come through and we'll regulate a lot of it. So that's why we have put to councillors that we could do more work on that once we have more information.
Thank you. And I did have one more question, Chair. Thank you. Page 33.96 says that if the new water entity's debt level was to be close to the 500% maximum, this may place downward pressure on rating outlook for parent councils, depending on the size. And there was also, I had lost where I marked it, but there was also, if everything our council owns that we borrow against for our debt levels is passed over to the new entity, are we going to be in negative borrowing, or do you know what I mean? Like, so the current assets that we own when they're passed over to the new entity, what does that mean for us financially of having lost all those assets?
There was a Standard & Poor's report done in February 2023 And that set out the winners and the losers with their language. And this council benefits from going to a different entity. So we're financially, all things being equal, we'll be financially better off with water going off.
Thank you.
Ms. Wales.
Thank you, and thank you for tolerating. So under the recommendation I, it says write a joint water service delivery plan and the implementation between that. So we're committed to obviously a journey down the regional, and we're assuming, if we assume that that's where our public consultation lands us, because I'd hate to predetermine that that's where they're going to tell us what to do. There is going to be more money involved in continuing the journey of a regional structure, which is what the central government want us to do. Will we have that extra cost known to us before we go out and do the annual plan consultation? Because, you know, once we start this journey, and assuming when we stand up this entity, we still have to find those costs, don't we? So my concern as a voice for the community, when will we get to have a look at what some of those costs are going to hit us, because they're not budgeted for, and we're probably going to have to look at a total rejig of our LTP to make sure that it's affordable so that we can.
Through your worship, in my mind, and there is the cost of doing this work. There's the cost of establishing the new entity, and then there's the ongoing costs. The costs of doing this work will need to be borne by this council, and then how that gets taken care of moving forward, it might be rolled into part of the establishment cost. It might not, it might be. Your question on whether we will know the cost of doing this work if we go out to consultation, we will have estimated costs of what it'll be. There have occasionally been surprises and changes, for example, in going early on IT costs. So all I can say is we get an estimate of the cost before we go forward. These costs have been given to us until this is the estimate for stage 2. Stage 2 takes us till August next year. But I can't stand here and say we know all the costs. There's been different discussions.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, so we have the recommendations from Councillor Bentley. We're recommending in G, do you have putting forward a recommendation? G2. So we have recommendations there, A through to I, and the agree to G2, which directs officers not to further investigate a single count. We have a seconder, we have a mover, and Councillor Bentley, seconder, and Councillor Carson. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no. It's been carried. We now move to item 5, which is the additional funding request on page 271. And it clearly the background info explains why and how and where that money is coming from. Do you have any questions? Councillor Swales?
I read this paper, and after the meeting that we had in the Finance and Performance Committee meeting on the 4th of December, and I look at the diagram that we had, or the dashboard that we had for Wellington Water. One of the things that I actually asked on that dashboard was the unexpected event reserve, and it was 0. And yet we're being asked for more money for floods that have happened, which I would have put in that unexpected events status, but I could be wrong. So, you know, in one paper it says we don't need this money put aside, And yet they're coming back to us saying that they actually need more money for stormwater because there's been some flooding events. So, you know, it's just another, I don't know, fairy tale that they come to us saying, we're okay, we've asked you for the right amount of money, but now we're actually short, we want some more. So are we looking at doing flood protection or flood mitigation? And if so, then surely it should be money that we put aside.
For you, Worship. The reserve fund that is in the capital worksheet from Wellington Water Report. We have an arrangement with Wellington Water whereby they can retain 5% of our funds in a reserve. This council elected to use those funds as a first point of call, if I'll put it like that, before drawing on our own funds. So what I would say to you is, having used money at Wellington Water, we've taken control back into the council and said, when you need extra money, Wellington Water, come to council, please, and council will make that decision.
Thank you.
That makes sense, the way I've explained it.
Thank you. Happy to move recommendations, councillor Carey. We have a seconder, councillor Bentley. All those in favour say aye. Contrary, no. It's been carried. Now to go to item 8, which is the no stopping lines and pedestrian refuge islands on Fergusson Drive. Any questions for the officers? Questions? Councillor Alter?
Not questions, through you, Chair. I do have a comment to make, just that I'm really pleased to see the work done around this. The site where I have noticed a few dangerous points driving through there. So thank you.
Any other? Councillor
Well written paper, and thank you very much. Like I say, for the information, I'm happy to move the recommendation.
Have been moved, seconded by councillor Carey. All those in favour say aye. Contrary, no. It's been carried. We now go to item 8, which is the 9. My eyesight. Parking changes for Ashford Lane, carpark and Logan Street. It's now page 326. Do we have any discussion? As far as I'm concerned, if you read through that, it makes sense. It totally makes sense. Any questions? Councillor Wheeler?
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, it's been an issue around here for quite a while, and that makes sense. But the question I have is actually on number 16. About skip bins, and I have mentioned this before. We own the land there. Who owns the skip bins there? And do they rent back from council? Because I've been there for quite a while and no one's been enough.
Does anyone know who owns the skip bin?
For you, Chair, Derek Grant, Economic Development Manager, would be best to answer that. I just, through the report, maintain current usage. We can obviously look into that further. There are skip bins being used there. There are locations that are safe and accommodated. Currently in the top, in the bottom left-hand corner by the loading zone, there are skips being used there, which we would want those to be moved out of that pedestrian area into the current spaces shown on the plan.
If we can follow that up, give an answer. Okay. We'll get an answer. We'll make sure. Thank you very much. Seconded by councillor Holness. All those in favour say aye. Contrary, no. It's been carried. We then go to item 10, which is the schedule meetings. Now, we will discuss for we start the workshops next year about having a consistent day, all right? So that's the mix, and subject to further discussion, just councillors note, that's as the committees are, but we will be having a discussion in the new year about, because of the new setup with managers and some changes in committee structures. So we'll be doing that at some stage early in the new year, okay? So I'm happy to move that. Do we have any questions? Seconded, councillor Griffiths. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
No, it's been carried. We now move to the schedule of documents to be sealed. And I'm happy to move.
Your worship?
Yes.
I have a question.
Question?
Yes. So it's the authority and instruction form to register a caveat over titles. And it's for the Upper Hutt Blue Mountains Campus Development Partnership. So is that, I'm not quite sure what that actually means. Are there lots within the Blue Mountains development that this caveat is being registered over these two titles? Where is it? Because is it the whole lot of the Blue Mountains, or is it a part of it? You've got titles 1, 0 and another title. So I'm assuming there are a number of titles on that property.
Through the chair, I'm sorry, I'm unable to answer that question at the moment, but
Yeah.
Okay, all right. And then the other one is, once again, if your worship is on the next page, and it is about Blue Mountains Campus Development, about the agreement to surrender and grant easement on Grants Wash. What does that actually mean when we had it as a reserve kind of when they mentioned me?
Follow
through
that
the
up.
chair, I'll need to find out.
We can follow that up.
Thank you.
Okay. So I'm happy to move that we receive the schedule of documents sealed and confirm the actions recorded and approve the fixing of common seals of all relevant documents. Deputy Mayor Swales, all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Contrary no, it's been carried. We now move to the confirmation of the council minutes, which was held on the 6th of November. And any item to be discussed, I'm happy to move. Seconded by Deputy Mayor Swales. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
No, it's been carried. We now move to the City Services Committee meeting that was held on the 13th of November. Any items to be discussed? Councillor Wheeler.
Thank you, Worship. Our Citizens Committee to confirm the record of meeting held on 13th of November 2024 is fully and correct record of meeting. Seconded.
Councillor Ultra, moved by Councillor Wheeler, seconded by Councillor Ultra. All those in favour say aye. Contrary no, it's been carried, and we now adopt. I'd like to move that we adopt the recommendations of the City Services Committee. Happy to move, seconded by Councillor Wheeler. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Contrary no, it's been carried. We now move to the approval of the minutes of the Risk and Assurance Committee, which was held on the 20th of November. Any items to be discussed?
Item 10, your worship.
Item 10. Item 10. Health and safety. Before we move in, do you want to?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry, there was a recommendation there around who was responsible for the health and safety report. And then it was moved by the chair and the deputy, the chair and the independent person, and then the chair had the casting vote. But I'd actually like to challenge it, because post that meeting, the CEO actually sent us out an email actually explaining to us who the officers are that are responsible for the health and safety. And the last paragraph that came from the CEO, what means is that elected members are not officers in the terms of the Act and are not liable for prosecution. The only area where further clarity is needed is the status of an independent member appointed to a council committee, noting that for community boards, this is covered off. So knowing that we aren't actually responsible, I'm not quite sure why we had that recommendation and why it was passed. I think it should be revoked.
When you recommend that council convene a notice of report titled health and safety.
Yes,
And then
under,
this committee notes all elected
yeah,
members can access it
yes, sorry, Your Worship.
and are invited to raise any questions.
Your Worship, I'm happy to table the email that was sent by the CEO for all the elected members and the executive leadership and the independent.
I'm just looking, following through here. This committee notes that all elected members can access the personal insurance health advice on the website and invited to raise any questions. So I'm not sure what's the issue.
So the issue was that the chair and the independent were trying to say that actually as elected members, we are responsible for the report and any health and safety.
But that's not what the recommendation
That doesn't say that though. Yeah, councillor Carson.
Okay, thank you. Well, the real problem with this is because I did my casting vote, so that's what the real issue is. The problem is that, yes, and the independent member on the Risk Assurance Committee, Sarah Browning, recommended this, and I take her recommendation seriously. And the fact is, just pointing out to all councillors, whether they're responsible or not through the Health and Safety at Work Act, that they should actually be aware of the health and safety report. And because not all members, all councillors are on that committee and don't get to actually attend it and discuss its contents. Whether they read it or not is not an issue. The point is that we think it's prudent as a risk and assurance committee that all councillors should be aware that that report exists and more importantly be aware of its contents. And because they don't attend, they are not members of the risk committee, although Councillor Ultra did attend, they should be, we're just pointing out that this actually exists and can be accessed. We're not saying that the councillors are responsible. Right, so if independent member Sarah actually said that, then she was mistaken. But that's not the issue. The issue is that this report exists and we're recommending as a risk insurance committee that all councillors A, be aware of it and B, be invited to read it.
Yeah, no, I think from the point of view of councillors, I think that reads okay. Okay, councillor Carson.
Thank you. I have asked the Risk and Assurance Committee to confirm that the record of the meeting held on the 20th of September 2024 is the true and correct record of the meeting. I have a second of these. Councillor Griffiths.
Moved by councillor Carson, seconded by councillor Griffiths.
Excuse me, Your Worship, councillor Griffiths actually left early and I think the only ones that could actually attest that these are correct one that would be right to the very end, which is councillor Newell, myself, the independent person and the chair. So I suppose the only person that, no, she's not a member of the committee, councillor Griffiths. So I think that leaves me to second it.
Okay, we'll move to councillor Carson, seconded by councillor Swallows. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
No, it's been carried. We now move and that we adopt the recommendations of that meeting. I'm happy to move, seconded by councillor Carson. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. No, it's been carried. We now move to the policy committee, which was held on the 27th of November. Are there any items to be discussed? Councillor Griffiths.
I asked the policy committee to confirm that the record of the meeting held on the 27th of November 2024 is a true and correct record of the meeting. Can I call for a seconder? Councillor Holmes.
Moved by councillor Griffiths, seconded by councillor Holmes. All those in favour say aye. Thank you. No, it's been carried. And we adopt the recommendations of that meeting, seconded by councillor Griffiths. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. No, been carried. And we now move to the Finance and Performance Committee, which was held on the 4th of December. Any items to be discussed? Councillor Bentley.
I tabled the minutes and asked the Finance and Performance Committee to confirm that the record of the meeting held on the 4th of December 2024 is a true and correct record of the meeting. I will second that.
Seconded by councillor Wheeler, or moved by councillor Bentley, seconded by councillor Wheeler. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no, it's been carried. We now move to, move that we adopt the recommendations of that meeting. Moved by myself, seconded by councillor Bentley. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no, it's been carried. We now move to Creative Communities Committee.
Your Worship, I have a conflict of interest on the draft number 14 to the Timberlake Community Draft.
We will note that. And so the Creative Communities was held on the 14th of November. Any questions? Being, one of you like to move it? Councillor Alt? Move that? Yep, moved by councillor Alt, seconded by councillor Holderness. All those in favour say aye. Contrary, no, it's been carried. And we now move to public excluded. We have a seconder for that? Seconded by councillor Holderness. All those in favour say aye. Contrary, no, it's been carried. Thank you.